Joining us in conversation to reflect on the impacts of the past 2 years on South Africa's job market and why it dramatically changed the future of our employment landscape is the founder of GRM. He's also the host of a podcast, Legal Unicorns, and co-founder of the Vikings soccer program, Rob Green. Rob, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Benito. It's great to be back with you, and thanks very much for your time. Yes, it's been a tumultuous couple of years, and yes, it's nice to be talking to you again.
COVID has certainly changed the world and work, the nature of work. The impact certainly in South Africa has been devastating. What have you observed from a recruitment perspective, Rob?
Yeah, good question. And I'm going to take a very broad view on recruitment and the job market as a whole, I think, rather than being specific. So some of my comments may be very broad, and I apologize for that. I think it's worth pointing out as well that I don't have any political affiliations.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not from here originally, so whilst I am extremely well read and versed on South Africa's more recent history and the trials and tribulations of the new democracy, I don't have any political affiliations. I will comment on what I observe, and it really what I see here also comes from a place of comparison. You know, I've lived and worked overseas in many different countries, and in countries that I haven't lived in, I've worked in. So I've worked in over 45 countries. So I've seen different employment markets, different ways of operating countries and cities. So I think, that's the position I come from. I think, to answer your original question, COVID, I mean, I don't know whether the powers that be are ready to let us to move on yet, are they? Let's be honest. I think we're all ready to move on. So I will talk about it as if it's slightly in the past tense. I think you and myself and anybody else who was going into the first lockdowns in March, April 2020, from a job perspective, from a business perspective, we were all very scared, I think, weren't we?
Yeah.
I think we were all worried. We didn't know what to expect. People of your and my age, if I may be so brave, have been through a number of recessions. I've been through a number of ups and downs over the decades, but we've never seen a pandemic, and we've never seen the world shut down in such a systematic and conjoined way as it did in 2020. And I don't think any of us really knew what to expect. And when you're looking at South Africa, which was already in the middle of a double recession, with frighteningly, almost, and I don't use the term lightly, criminal unemployment figures, the scare factor was even larger. We had just done, our research team had just released end of 2018, early 2019, had released a research report which took in every piece of external research that we could find on the South African job market, from Stats SA, from the government's own stats and research, all the way through talking to every business we could speak to, it was a huge research project. And the official figures for unemployment were around, at that time, about 39%, which I think they still are now, the official figures. But our research team uncovered, and we looked at unemployment, we also looked at underemployment, which is a stat that not many people look at. And what we mean by underemployment is people earning less than the minimum wage, people earning less than they need to live on. And that stat and that figure came in at around 82% of the country, is what we believed conservatively and from our research showed that upwards of just over 80% of the country was either unemployed or underemployed. So, that's, again, I'm happy to, anybody who wants to contact me and discuss that research. It's obviously now 3 years old, so it could be a lot worse. But you're talking about a market that was already incredibly stretched with no real way of getting out of it, or certainly not something that looked particularly cohesive. I appreciate that every time that there is a local election or a general election in this country, jobs are top of the list, poverty is close to the top of the list, and our dear esteemed leaders here quite often promise a lot of jobs, but they never quite materialize. So I think going into COVID, in complete honesty, I think everybody was very worried. I have South Africans, locals that I employ, and obviously my first thought process personally, and as many of my clients were as well, was their health and safety, number one. I'm sure your employers at Smile were exactly the same.
Yeah.
For you guys. And then about protecting revenue and so we can pay bills and pay salaries. And luckily for us, we made the transition to remote working very swiftly, and we didn't have to let anybody go, which is great. But obviously lots of businesses, especially in hospitality, had to, where people really are living on minimum wage and relying on their tips, had to let a lot of people go. So I think the first year of COVID, I think probably added to the numbers that I've just discussed. Yet obviously official statistics will tell you something different. The one thing I can give South Africa for, and South Africans in general, is that you are a resilient bunch of people, and you are hard workers, and you will push on through. And I think this is another set of challenges that were sent to test us here. And many businesses have largely come out the other side, apart from on the SME side. So, but yeah, we can get into that in more detail as we go along.